You see, I am a single and a simple college student living alone in an apartment. I was very enthusiastic about the release of Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver here in the States. I have purposely locked out myself of all the media and the internet aside from school purposes, which means no 4chan, no Bulbapedia, etc. As I was busy with the school year and being poor at the time, I wasn't able to buy Soul Silver on its launch date. After my school year ended, I ordered Soul Silver on Amazon. However, it would take a week for it to arrive. I decided that during that time, I would replay my Crystal version on my Game Boy Color. However, I realized that not that long ago, my mom threw it away because I told her that the save went and dead. Now, I was very upset about it back then, so she threw away my silver version. So all I have is the Game Boy Color, such as I set out to GameStop and bought a used silver version, as it was the only Pokemon game that they had left that they have for Game Boy Color. $10, fairly cheap. I went home and started up for my nostalgia trip. However, that's where things started to get bizarre, and most likely the reason why you read this. The Game Freak logo started up as normal, but it just froze there. I thought the cart was just has an error or something, so I turned it off and turned it on. The same thing happened. I tried pressing A and start over and over and over again on all the buttons. Eventually the logo vanished and there was a black screen for about 5 seconds. Suddenly, rather than going to the main menu screen, I was already in the game with the previous save file, which was I was expecting of all the carts to have been wiped out by the poorly by the battery. Either way, I wasn't complaining, as I would have chosen continue option to see what the previous guy did as always. First off, I first checked his trainer information. His name was just blank and he didn't have any much originality. I checked his profile and apparently he said around 900,099 hours put into the game, with all 16 badges and about a lot of Pokédollars and about 251 Pokemon on the Pokedex. Seeing as he apparently had Mew and Celebi logged, I'm guessing he either used a Game Genie or was really a hardcore Pokemon player back then. I checked his Pokemon to see what a badass team he has, and to my surprise, I saw 5 unknown and a 6th Pokemon named Hurry. I'm just thinking that it might have been some sort of cruel joke by the person who last played the game, but decided to check on the profiles to those Pokemon anyways. As expected, they were different letters of unknown, all of a 5, and I was a bit shaky with my unknown alphabet at the time, so I identified the word to spell out to be leave. As for the 6th Pokemon, it turned out to be Cyndaquil. Mind you, this was before the individualized Pokemon icons. The Cyndaquil looked normal and was about level 5 with only 1 HP left, with only 2 attacks, Leer and Flash. I didn't know why they named him Hurry, but at the time I just disregarded it. The most eerie thing about that, despite my volume being at max, none of the Pokemon had said their usual cries, just pure silence. Having enough of the team, I closed it and I was parked of what appears to be a room inside the Bellsprout Tower. However, for some reason, there were no NPCs around. Even more eerie than that the pillar at the middle of it didn't move at all, as if it was just leaning on one side. There were no music at all, and there was no exit or ladder, or at least I thought there wasn't. I walked out of there for a few minutes, but couldn't seem to find a way out. This was certainly not a room I have seen in the Bellsprout Tower before. I tried checking my items for an escape rope, but the bag was completely empty, and there wasn't any wild Pokemon either. Finally, I managed to find a ladder, which turned out to be behind the pillar, and the screen turned to black, and the music finally started playing. I had a sudden chill, and as I recognized that melody, I have heard there to be a theme when you listen to the radio at the Elf Ruins where unknowns were at. I immediately realized that I wasn't loading any transition, but rather was in a dark room that would need to be flashed. Before I could take care of that though, I immediately checked on my Pokegear to change the radio to something more pleasant, as it turns out that there was no radio card or even a phone or time cards. There was only a map card which had Gold from earlier, and then I will call him Gold from now on, just the walking of the midst of black. I recall that Cinequil has Flash, so I turned off my Poké Gear and made Cinequil use Flash. I didn't see any messages saying hurry, use Flash, or anything like that. The room just became lit just like that. As soon as I regretted it, the room was a chill-blooding blood red with a line gray, a path heading south. The ladder I used to go up and down was not there at all. I had no choice but to head south. The screen got darker every 20 steps I made, until I finally made it to the end, which appears to be a sign. I read the sign which said, "Turn back now." Suddenly, I was asked to answer yes or no, but there was no question asked, so I chose yes. I do not know what I was thinking or asking, and the screen went black again, making a ladder climbed sound. The unknown radio music had stopped, and in a few seconds, it was replaced with a not-so-creepy polka flute radio music. I was in another dark room, and I held my breath as I used Flash again. Suddenly it said Hurry has fainted, which was odd because I recall that there was no status conditions like poison on him, and I clearly wasn't in a battle, so I checked my Pokemon quickly, and suddenly he was no longer in my party. In fact, after doing some investigating, none of my Pokemon were there, but instead replaced with level 10 unknown. I did the exact same like before and spelled out the unknown, then the team unknown spelled he died. Either way, after that creepy change, the room was lit to reveal itself in a small room that appears to be only 4 squares big. The walls of the room were gray bricks, as if it were inside of some hollowed out room. Outside of the room appears to be a bunch of graves, similar to those in Pokemon Red and Blue. I've walked out that same small room, and pressed, but nothing happened. I've already concluded that this was creepy a hacked game, or some sadistic person said to it at GameStop. But however, my curiosity kept going. I checked the trainer profile of my character, again, only to find out there was a sprite of gold with missing arms. He also seems to appear less smug, but rather seems more sad and empty way that I do not know how to describe. For some reason, it also said that he has 24 badges, which was clearly impossible. After a few minutes of aimless wandering, my character suddenly spun and did the escape rope spinning animation. Instead of flying up high though, my character spun around downwards slowly, as if sinking. After that, this music had stopped, and shortly after landing, the overworld sprite of gold has colored was differently now. Instead of the usual red color like he does appear to be completely white now, including his skin, as if he had came out straight out of the colorless Game Boy games. I placed into the color of the background of the Game Boy Color. I checked his profile, and now he was now all in white with his overload sprite, as he had lost his legs. What has appears to be bloody tears from his eyes. It also says that he has now 32 badges, which just starts to disturb me, and the change of his numbers seemed to be represent or something important. I also checked my Pokemon, which in this time contains 5 unknowns and a level 100 Celebi without a nickname. The unknown was spelled this time level 15 and spelled out dying. I checked the Celebi's profile, and it was a shiny Celebi, except that there was only half of sprite, 1 leg, 1 arm, 1 eye, and it only had 1 attack, Perish Song. The area I was in, and this was the Sprout Tower of the immobile pillar as before, except everything was apparently red now. I walked north of what felt like forever. Eventually, I finally encountered some generic men and women NPC, and they were all lined up at the side, just facing the long, slantish pillar in the middle. They were all so white and nothing happens when I tried to speak to them. I kept going north until eventually the pillar finally appears to be chopped off, with a transparent red in that spot. I went up to that red without even pressing A, and I was suddenly engaged and was finally in battle. The music starts again, which sounded like the unknown radio music again, but it played backwards. Gold's battle black back sprite rematches its front with one of the bloody eyes, white skin, and lack of arms, while red sprite was the same as before in GSC, except transparent. The text simply said, "Wants to battle," as if he has no name. Both of us apparently have Pokemon each, but it is weird since I swore I had 6 in the unknowns. My shiny Celebi came out conveniently with half a sprite of the sprite back. Also, the shiny noise animation was different. It sounded like as if it was multiple screech attacks used consecutively. Red sent out seemingly a normal Pikachu, except level 255, and his sprite seems to be has a tear in his eyes. Rather than the usual fight the item Pokemon run menu, I was only given the option to use attacks. Since Celebi only has one, I chose it. Naturally, since Pikachu is at level 255, he went first. Pikachu used Cursed, lowering his speed and increasing his other stats. I'm not even sure if Pikachu could use Curse. Celebi used Perish Song. In 3 turns, Pikachu and both Pokemon get KO'd. Not like I have a choice. At this point, it didn't go back to the fight menu, as the menu just continued without me. Also, a note that said that no animations at all for some reason. Pikachu and Flail, which didn't do any damage despite his level and the boost. His health was maxed. Celebi used Perish Song, and nothing happens as it was already used. Pikachu used Frustration, which did a crap ton of damage, knocking Celebi down to less than 10 HP. Celebi used Pain Split, which surprised me as Celebi didn't have a move that could attack in the first place. Now Celebi and Pikachu have about 150 HP. Pikachu used Mean Look, not like it did anything. As expected, due to the effects of the Perish Song, my Celebi fainted. Except the text, it said Celebi has died, instead of the original ordinary drop-off screen animation of the Celebi sprite just vanished. For some reason, the Pikachu is still up even with the Perish Song, and it didn't even count my loss. Pikachu used more than a different attack beyond the 5 attack limit. Pikachu and used Destiny Bond. Afterwards, it said Pikachu has died with a slowly fade out animation. Apparently, I was the winner, as the transparent sprite Red showed up, but he said nothing. At this point, I was just freaked out as the transparent Red sprite was suddenly beheaded, leaving nothing but transparent body. The battle even ended at that point and faded out to a song with the music. I'm back with the overworld world, and the other song changed to Gold Sprite, and he is now transparent as Red's overworld sprite. I quickly checked Gold's profile, and where the time only being of him was his head with a transparent skin. His head was zoomed in a bit, showing black voids in his eyes. It now started that he had 40 badges. I then backed out and checked my Pokemon. All of them were at level 20, Shiny Unknown, which meant spelt out Red, no more. I was at when I knew it was going to end next. There was apparently no music playing, but for some reason I still felt like something was there that should have been heard. I was back in my room in New Bark Town. Maybe finally I get to play this game properly, but who am I kidding? I knew this sadistic person must have done something. As I walked around my room to interact with the Fanes, as I'm afraid to go down the stairs to see what was weighing down. Note said, walked, as the wild background was moving. Gold was not moving the transparent limbs like if he was doing so, just floating around this ghost like you see in Diamond and Pearl. As expected, the radio, computer, and TV did not work, so I had no choice but to go down the stairs. I ended up in the same lower level of my room of my house. Everything appears normal, except Mom wasn't home. After failing to interact with anything in the room, I decided to go outside. To my surprise, that door was hanging outside of the south didn't work. Instead, I just walked straight out into a void. I continued moving south to see what the hell was going on. My house vanishes as it heads south into the void. It was creepy when I entered the void. On the outline of Gold's transparent sprite turned white as in contrast with the black pitch. But eventually, I reached to the white area, and Gold's sprite had turned to black and transparent again. I continued south without thinking of it at all. After a long trek south, I finally encountered something. It was Gold's regular sprite. I walked to it and he said, "Goodbye forever," notably with the space in between forever and the dots. It vanished, and that was all that happened. It said nothing, used Nightmare, and at this point I would not deny that being possible. Gold did another escape rope animation, spinning around slowly, downwards like before. Now I'm back right into that small, hollowed-out room, surrounded by graves earlier. Or at least I would say I was back there. There was no sprites anymore. I tried to walk around, but nothing moved. Not even the wall bumping noise. I checked my channel profile with absolutely no gold sprite left, and I have 0 badges, and all the pictures of the Johto gym leaders at the bottom were replaced with skulls. I checked my Pokemon, and they were all level 25 unknown, as expected. It spelled out the phrase that was dared to read, "I'm dead." As soon as I went back to the overworld at the room, supposedly was in covered with the same blocks on the walls, I then figured out it was exactly the room where the final text had said, "Rest in peace." That room was a big grave, surrounded by other graves. Gold has officially been dead. He died presumably after a few years, after being defeated Red. He was a young trainer who, despite his efforts in collecting so many badges and attempts at becoming a Pokemon Master, was unable to avoid the inevitable fate of death, and his efforts were eventually forgotten by the next generation. I was unable to escape from the text no matter what I pressed. I tried resetting the game, and the same thing happened, which I finally decided to give up on that horrible nightmare. After that experience, I will never look at the Grimwick Mick unknown the same way again. The only thing they said the first generation have folk tales and legends, but the second generation have shown me how unpleasant the truth can be. I eventually overjoyed Soul Silver seamlessly, but I still can't unthink of what rigged game he has told me. And that, my little pretties, was Pokemon Lost Silver, a Pokepasta. My final thoughts on the story? Well, this is gonna be a shocker to you all. I actually have good things to say about this story, but I actually do have a few bad things about this story. Like, not really too many negative ones, but I'm gonna definitely say that this is like an older story. Like, it's a classic creepypasta or pokepasta. And I'm gonna be completely honest that I remember hearing narrations of this story. Like, I've heard a ton of narrations of this story, and this one was definitely something. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like, I remember I first read this story. Like, I didn't narrate it on my channel or anything. I've took a look at this story, I think, when I watched Creeps Pasta's video on it, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I actually found this one to be quite good. And there is like a little note right here, which I'm gonna read, saying in early September 2010, a complete working fan game of Lost Silver was made. The game of its unknown executable rather than a ROM hack, and there are therefore is that not require an emulator or a Pokemon Silver ROM. And there has been talks about expanding the story by adding different series of events which the player chooses no at the sign that says turn back now. While many people believe that the events when choosing no, which is referred to as hidden by fans, is a made-up edition of the game, and is in fact made up by the original writer in response to the creator of the fan game. So, the standalone fan game was made by Underdyne Pokemon engine, created by a game creation program called Game Maker. The source file of the game could be downloaded right here. So, I just decided to read, the game, kind of like a little offers note or something, which I actually, took a look at, those videos, and they're actually creepy as hell. Like, oh my goodness. Like, I kind of remember watching, some people play it, and it was pretty something, I'm not gonna lie. Now, what are my final thoughts on the story? Well, I mean, it is a bit cliched, like, I'm gonna be honest. It's a simple college student, living alone in an apartment, and, the beginning seems well. But when it comes to the offer, getting the Pokemon Silver version in the GameStop, I think buying a game at a cartridge at, like, a GameStop, and, yeah, I would have to say that that is cliche. Although this is an older story, so yeah, that it's an older story, so I'm kind of willing to give it a pass because it's an older and classic Poke story. But another thing I would have to say is, how creepy it is, having the messages, with the unknown saying, turn back now, he died, or, I'm dead, and that. And, those messages, I would have to say, I haven't really played, Pokemon Lost Silver. Well, I haven't played the Silver game, the original one, in years. Like, oh my goodness, I used to play that game like quite a lot. But I have not played the hack of this game. I think I might consider maybe taking a look at it when I have the time. It looks to be like a pretty interesting story. So, I definitely would have to say it's really freaky on how it was described, having, Red losing his limbs and then he dies, near the end of he basically dies in the story. I mean, it's pretty freaky of how, this was portrayed and described in this, like, especially after I read it. The only thing I would have to say was cliche was the beginning, especially when it came to, buying the cartridge at a game store, because other pastas have done that, but this one I definitely would have to say I'm willing to give it a pass because it's an older story. So there's definitely that. It's an older story, so I'm willing to give this one a pass. Although it may not be, the best Poke Pasta I've seen some quite other ones that are just pretty good. And I know it has been like a little bit since I did one besides, the what would you call it? Oh yeah, the Hypno's Lullaby that I took a look at not too long ago. Like, I mean, it's a pretty interesting story. Like, it's a really good concept for the whole thing. But I really would have to say the author actually managed to put his or her time and effort into the story. Now, the reason why I'm kind of stuttering is because I was trying to think of how to put it. Now, I would have to say it's not a terrible story. I haven't read this story in oh god, it's been quite a long time since I've last sat there and did this Poke Pasta. Well, I haven't read it before, but it's been a while since I actually last read this story. And I'm really glad I got to, read this one finally, because I remember how much this story was to me. Like, it was a really fun story. And not gonna lie, I actually found this one to be amazing. So, with that being the case, that being said, the only thing I really did not care for was the fact that, it was the only cliche I would have to, the cliche part I didn't really care for was getting like a cartridge at a game shop or a GameStop, because, that has been done in pastas in the past too. So, yeah, there's definitely that. That has been done in the past. So, that's definitely that. But anyways, yeah. With that being the case, that being said, I'm gonna sit here and wrap up this review. Like I'm gonna say, this is just simply my own personal opinion, and if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of this story would have to be a 9 out of 10. Only giving it a 9 because the only cliche I didn't really, I kind of really didn't care for was the fact that, the game was bought at a GameStop and that. And I know that it's an older pasta, and I know that cliche was used in a bunch of other Poke Pastas, so there's that. But I don't know who the original author of this story is, so I tried to see if I could find it. But until I can find out who the original author is, I'm gonna sit there and, leave it as anonymous. When I do find out who the author is, if he or she manages to see this and comments on the video, I'll be sure to sit there and give the author, him or her, proper credit. So anyways, what did you guys think about this story? Did you all enjoy it? Did you all not? Also, what you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section down below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode, and if you happen to be brand new here on this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out, and I'll see you all later.